the Marketing Report. My name is Russell Pearson and this is episode number 53. The Marketing Report is a podcast for passionate yet frustrated business owners who are looking for a competitive edge. And our series on ethical business continues with episode number 3. We've got another fantastic interview today. But before I get on to that, if you haven't had a chance yet, go and check out Moral Fairground and their festival, which I think should be running right now, Fair at Square. You can go check that out, moralfairground.com.au, to find out everything about what they're doing. And what they are doing is that they're actually highlighting and creating awareness around sustainable businesses, ethical businesses, and social enterprises here in Australia and obviously around the world. Their impact spreads very, very far, as you'll find out through some of these interviews in the interview series. But our next guest today is from Single Origin Skincare, and I'd love you to please make him feel welcome, Mr. Dean Sprague.
Well, thank you, Russell. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic to have you. Look, I've spoken to all sorts of different businesses over the course of these interview series, and I think we've got a completely different business today, though I think you've been in business for a while. Can you tell us a little bit about Origin Skincare?
Sure can. Well, Single Origin Skincare sort of came about recently. It's just sort of coming over a 2-year anniversary, or is it 3 times? Sort of blurs sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm originally a chef, and 35 years as a chef. Later in my career as an educator, business development, and then sort of really found a love for community development. I was working with long-term unemployed people, recent immigrants with very little English skills, people who had and were suffering from mental health issues, drug and dependency, and some of the most marginalised people in the community, and bringing together projects where there are outcomes of education or employment, or even employability skills was a major factor, and I love doing it.
So
being a
So you're working as a
yeah,
chef.
so
How did you get into that area?
well, the thing is, I'd always probably over the last 15-20 years started to raise the awareness of some of the food system issues, such as food wastage, and that was always a big one for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a Melbourne lad through and through, very proud Melbourneian, and I love my coffee. And it was just sort of one of those things. I'd been addressing food system issues, and all of a sudden it just kind of clicked into place that, I mean, in Australia, there's 11.5 million tonnes of coffee bought in every year. We do grow locally, but so that 11.5 million tonnes each year has to go somewhere. So it was more thinking about my cup of coffee from a systematic point of view, where I considered that it's originally a seed, it grows into a seedling, into a tree. The tree produces berries. Those berries are picked, they're sorted, they're classified. There's waste from the berries themselves. From there, it's sent off to graders and roasters, and ultimately to the cafe where we sit with our morning brew, our morning ritual.
Yeah. Look, I'm from Melbourne as well, so I know how important it is.
Yeah. It's very, very attached to our coffee, but I'd never really considered the impact of what I was doing. And because the systemized thinking, the technical thinking that I had been exposed to over the years, just got me thinking about, hey, hang on a second, there's a lot of waste generated from something that is, it's part of our culture. Melbourne culture, absolutely. Cafe culture is separate from a coffee culture, but worldwide, it's you either do or you do not. And there's I'll probably meet 1 in 20, 1 in 30 people that don't drink coffee.
Yeah.
So 2.5 billion cups every single day around the globe.
And so what did you do? Like, what's the business now do with this waste?
Well, the thing is, most cafes, 90% of cafes simply don't know what to do with it, and it's messy. If you don't do something with it on the day, it can get moldy and spoil rather quickly. So it needs to be an instant thing. but I actually upcycle used ground coffee from cafes, and dealing with some of the best ethically, sustainably driven cafes who understand, trying to minimize their waste, whether it's eliminating paper cups or plastic straws, those sort of disposables. But the big one, the major one is the coffee waste. And most, sort of a regular cafe will generate 60 to 80 kilos of coffee waste each week.
Yep.
90% of those just simply don't know what to do with them. And there's very little programs in place by council, by government to say, hey, we're going to do. The biggest thing is that it actually breaks down, that coffee waste breaks down into CO2 and methane. They both rise into the atmosphere and deplete the ozone layer. So that just contributing to the greenhouse effect. So by sequestering that used ground coffee, I'm actually minimizing that impact. And there's no slowdown. There is no slowdown in coffee.
No, it seems to keep growing.
Yeah. And it's part of it. It's not a matter of will I have a coffee? It's right. What time do I get my coffee? As opposed to But it was more because I love the coffee. I was having that moment of reflection just as I was taking that first sip, and I was considering things like the growers, the transport guys, the roasters, the barista. And just realize that this thing is huge, and it is. It's obviously it's a global industry, but not much is actually getting done about the waste generated by that industry.
All right, now the business is called Single Origin Skincare, so I assume that that's where the products end up. So tell us, what are the sort of products that you create? How is it created?
Sure. Well, so I reclaim coffee on the day. I treat it straight away. I get it cooled so that it's ready to. But I also look at fair trade and ethical businesses for the other ingredients. So I blend with some beautiful premium ingredients. So it still pays that respect to coffee. And I work with local growers who are producing a cold pressed organic virgin coconut oil, for example. That's one of the ingredients. There's Himalayan pink salt as one of the exfoliating agents. And I mean, that ingredient there alone, the nutritional, we understand that whatever we put onto our skin we will absorb it in a way, we'll eat it. So you keep it as organic as possible, as natural as possible, and no nasty chemicals. So all natural, all organic skincare. And I do a range of soaps, body scrubs, face scrubs, foot scrubs even, which are delicious. They all have that sort of coffee undertone scents, and other things like I source my vanilla from Indonesia. It's actually a Tahitian and Madagascan vanilla that's grown by a series of fair trade farmers, ethical farmers in Indonesia. And it's also led by a fellow Aussie. So big shout out to Aaron. Your vanilla is beautiful, and it's part of the ingredients.
That's fantastic. The more I learn about social enterprise, and especially through these interviews,
there's connection.
Yeah, and it's very much as a case of it's every part of the process. There is usually a connection, and it's ethically, I guess, looking at all those steps in the process, and how do you help people locally? How do you work with people internationally? And so, where are you processing the product? Is it in Australia, or where does it?
In the process of setting up enterprise in Australia, but I'm based in Chiang Mai, which is northern Thailand, close to the Myanmar border. So I spend a lot of time with the farmers, the growers. A lot of people don't realize that Thailand actually has more varieties of coffee than any other place on the planet. What happened is back in the 1950s, the late king actually started what's known as the Royal Project. Now, the Royal Project put the call out to foods and other commodities can be diversified by people up in that border region. The notorious Golden Triangle, where there was opium grown. So he wanted to eradicate that, replace it with high yield crops, and he put the call out to around the world for coffee. And some of the varieties that are grown here are no longer grown anywhere else.
Wow.
So yeah, it's just one of those things. People don't realise the diversity of the coffee industry here in Thailand.
It's fascinating, all the different components and how it all works together. So you're over in Thailand, the processing is being done there. Where are you drawing coffee from?
Well, the coffee itself can come from Guatemala, can come from Colombia. I put a lot of emphasis on the Papua New Guinean just because of its close association to Australia. But really, it's sourcing the best of the best coffee because I can't process it all. 2.5 billion cups per day is, I can't even do the maths on it, but I know that I walk into a cafe and I say, so what do you do with your coffee waste? And most of the time we simply throw it out. And the very first question is, do you want it? And I can't keep up with that demand until I get a massive tractor. But this is kind of good as well because I keep it small batch, I keep it bespoke, I keep it handcrafted. As I get busier and busier, I can bring people in to work with me and use it as an education, as a employability skills, so generating jobs. But yeah, I've actually got a little lab which really appeals to the scientist in me as well. So I do all my soaps and beard oils and scrubs. I've got one here. I'm going to hold one up because it's a blatant plug for it's a little beard oil there, and it's actually it's an espresso martini beard oil. So
hello, ladies.
Yeah, it is. It smells beautiful, but you can use it on your hair. Not that I've got hair. But you can use it on your hair.
For anyone listening on the podcast, fantastic looking product. Actually, it looks very classy, all black packaging with nice gold lettering over the top of it.
Or wait till you smell it. Like the espresso martini, I've actually used. I managed to find these oranges which were going to waste. So I actually processed them into this beautiful oil, and so that's part of the flavour profile. So espresso martini with a hint of sweet orange in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you call it? Is it reconstituted coffee? Like what do you?
Well, I simply say upcycled or recycled. Okay. People understand those terms. I mean, from a production point of view, I'm treating it and I'm adding ingredients to it that'll stop it from going bad. So I don't need to add any chemicals, all natural again. You can eat my products. I don't, I say don't though. I don't eat it, but you can. And again, coming back to whatever we put on our skin will be absorbed by us and create residues. So no chemicals.
So you're influencing the coffee culture, the cafe culture. You're going into organisations, whether they be, or even little cafes, whether it be here in Australia or around the world, even locally to where you are, educating them about what they can do. And then obviously there's only so much you can take. Are there other people using this product? Are there ways that you can sort of refer and recommend those off to other people? Or?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, even just talking to people about the soaps that I make, they love the scents, they love the feel on their skin. They're gentle and mild, so they're great for the face, for example. But as soon as people smell them, regardless on whether they're a coffee drinker or not, but if they are a coffee drinker, it's an automatic. Oh, yeah, like that.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
And I muck. I'm still a chef, so I muck around with the flavor profiles. So there's a mocha cream, there's a latte love, there's roasted coffee, and then there's an espresso, which I actually use. Locally grown bamboo, which I treat and turn it into a bamboo charcoal soap. So, and the benefit of that is bamboo is such a quick growing crop. It actually sequesters CO2s and methanes from the atmosphere as well. So the more we can grow these fast growing crops, high yield, the better off the planet will be too. So adding nutrient to soil.
Well, there are all sorts of different aspects, and I'll be
Yes.
asking you toward the end of this interview, like, where to from here, like where can you go, what sort of size, scale, what have you. But I'm just imagining waking up in the morning, still feeling like, the slight hungover feeling, not from alcohol, but just from sleep, jumping in the shower, scrubbing yourself with coffee, basically, and boom, bang, you're up,
It is.
ready
It
to go.
does. It absolutely does. It really does invigorate you. And what a lot of people don't realize is caffeine. I mean, you can go to your local cafe and grab some, just a handful of dried ground coffee and rub that on your skin. A, it's exfoliating, but B, it's invigorating. But even skin conditions like acne, rosacea, yeah, oh God, I've gone terrible on it, but
No, but it's clear that there's so many different applications.
yeah. There's a huge amount of benefits. It actually tightens and firms the skin, so any cellulite, for example, gets minimised. So there's a lot of benefits to it.
Well, one of the questions I wanted to ask everybody in this series, because we are talking about ethical business, is what's ethical to you?
Sure. Well, it has to come from leadership, and the leadership has to be aware of, even if you're using the UN guided principles on ethical sustainability, to be aware of certain principles, whether it's creating employment, whether it's operating fair trade, whether it's paying fair prices for the ingredients or the commodities that your business uses. But it's got to come from leadership and culture. The cafe culture. So it's in my mind. The
That's
company
right.
culture has to, a fair and equal workplace where people are recognised as people. The differences in the traditional business model where there was top-down leadership, that's been changing over the last decade or two, but corporations are bottom line. There has to be more. I mean, you talk about the network of businesses in the ecosystem, in the entrepreneur, in the sustainability ecosystem. Everyone's willing to help and share information. In fact, like right now, I can give you the recipe for one of the scrubs. Take some coffee, use Himalayan pink salt or good quality salt, some coconut oil. You can add whatever flavors you want, vanillas, for example, but that's good enough to use on your body. And you've sequestered some coffee from your cafe.
Yeah.
So the more people doing this, the better off we'll be.
Absolutely, and the it's a funny old one because some people look at ethical business and sometimes think, is it a more difficult way of doing things? I think sometimes it's actually not necessarily more difficult. Yes, there's challenges, but the energy created just through the process actually keeps you going, I would imagine. The thing I was really interested to know is, what are some of the sort of struggles that have actually that you've experienced through the growing, and before you get onto that, why start a social enterprise rather than anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I guess for me personally, I'm driven to make an impact, whether it's on the environment or in the community. And just because I hold an idea doesn't mean that it's exclusively my idea. And I'm happiest when I'm helping others. So, the more I can help others, the happier I am and the more I want to do it. So I always had the community in mind. Part of the work that I do with coffee growers is I spend time in their community with their families. And what I was talking about organic and sustainable agriculture in regards to coffee. What I didn't expect is that there's the families have very little access to education, and whatever education they get isn't formally recognised. So there's generations of kids who, unfortunately, the terrible side of it end up in that trafficking, potentially trafficked, but certainly in low-paying, unskilled jobs for their lifetime. So I sit there and read and help them with their English to raise that communication, because there's always going to be an organisation or a company come along and say, hey, we'll buy your coffee beans, dollar per kilo for the next 10 years, sign here, and there's a lot lost in translation. And we're dealing with some of the the coffee growers and the pickers aren't necessarily the ones making the same ratio of money as coffee companies. So, it's creating that fairness.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And challenges, there's always challenges. I mean, we've been drinking coffee for a good couple of centuries now without any regard to what the outcome of it is. But your challenges all come from within. You're realizing you don't know all the answers, asking advice, seeking mentorship, and being a mentor in turn. So your own challenges are, the imposter syndrome. Am I good enough to be doing this? What can I do? And it's realizing that even the smallest steps that we take will have an impact. So we can contribute.
There's an old adage that running your business is the best personal development program you'll ever do, and I think that's 100% true. And
saved a fortune on counselling,
and then you need it on the back end. But it's interesting too, because while this isn't some scientific sample size, but certainly this is the third of 4 interviews, and all 3 of you that I've interviewed so far, it very much seems to be like it's in you. You would be helping people in some form, way, community, culturally, whether you are turning it into a business or not. So why not?
Yes.
Whereas there is a trendy element to the social enterprise and the Instagram and the like. But I think if you're going for the trend, and if it's not innately in you to actually develop it, maybe think again.
Yeah, well, I mean, the funny thing is, because it is a new business model, sharing of information, being accountable for your actions, and being at the forefront. Yeah, I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of sustainability, social enterprise leaders, and yeah, it's just one of those things. It is about sharing, and I've found, since getting out of the corporate world, where your IP was the all important thing, the secret sauce.
Yeah.
The more people that have your secret sauce, the better off the whole planet's going to be. So we tend not to say, I should be getting paid for this as well, because we're going to do it anyway. But for me, the light bulb moment was, I'd spent 15 years just giving of myself, giving my time, giving my physical presence to tasks, being there to help. And I kind of realized that, it'd be great to just continue using me and my money and my resources and all that kind of stuff. But I won't be able to continue doing what I'm doing moving forward unless I actually get paid for it. So, coming up with a product that can be sold at a retail or wholesale sort of source means that I can continue the work that I'm doing, the important stuff, working with kids, changing chemicals that are added to soil, doing whatever I can to create employment and create education outcomes.
Yeah,
that's the important stuff. In the meantime, I've got some beautiful smelling beards and body scrubs and beard oils and more products to come. But
I think that's the thing. Like, people think of sustainability as being this thing or that thing, but it's all things, which includes your energy as a leader, your ability to maintain a business and grow a business, ideally that can help more people, which means it needs to grow its infrastructure, which means it needs to be sustainable and to a degree profitable in a way that it can continue to grow and operate. And
the biggest thing is we realize that we're human at one point during our lives, and I'm not going to be here forever. But I'd like what is happening with single origin skincare to continue. So I have to be able to step away from the coalface, put governing principles in place so that, things like a revolving board of directors, for example, or leadership that encourages other emerging leaders to come through. So That way you create sustainability in business, but it's not all about me. I can continue doing my work, or whatever is most crucial to the business, but it doesn't mean I need to be there day in, day out.
So is that the future for the business? Is it like really focusing on, okay, we've got a model now that's working? And I wanted to ask you a couple more questions about that in a moment, but as far as the future, like, is it about now turning it into a mechanism that can continue the good work?
Yes, absolutely. And make it replicable in any of the coffee growing regions of the world, but also, the words coalface, the coalface is the cafe. So if you've got one cafe in an area, there's enough waste coffee from there to set up an enterprise there. So
Wow.
helping others, I mean, either make it another single origin skincare, or just say, hey, Russell Peters Magic Skincare operation, and now it's your business. So you've got an opportunity to go and to employ others and use your innovation, and it's supporting that person to grow as well.
I think that's great. I was saying to some of the interviews during the week, two before this series, I interviewed my own daughter. Now she's 14, or just about to turn 14 next week. And she just did a sort of a founder's course around social enterprise. And these ideals and values really resonated with her. But I think that's awesome about that is that someone even at that age potentially could replicate what you're talking about and actually start an enterprise in their own region.
And scalable as well. So one cafe is enough, but if there's 2 or 3 cafes, and let's face it, in Melbourne, it's you throw a coin in the street and it'll point you in the right direction. Head that way. The potential, and again, the more people doing this, I mean, just to show you the scale, there's a company in the UK that reclaims tons of coffee waste each week. Now, what they do is take it back into their labs and extract the bio oils from it. So now you're talking about fuel source. Yeah. I've met artists who are taking waste coffee and adding a bonding agent and creating sculpture. So there's art. We know that there's guys making coffee cups from waste coffee. I've seen someone making sunglasses again from used ground coffee. So the uses are there. What we do understand is that in particular coffee waste, but other waste as well, but in particular coffee waste, there's still a lot of energy present. So it can add carbon to soil. We can sprinkle it on our garden to add nutrient and carbon to soil and to help plants grow. Certain plants can't. But generally, you can throw it into your compost and onto your garden.
I talk about it a lot on this podcast, but I'm obsessed with like puzzles and putting things in order and like working stuff out. I've got a Rubik's Cube back here behind me.
I noticed the Rubik's Cube, yeah.
Right? So I love that sort of thing. And recently, I've become a little bit obsessed with the idea of energy. So energy moves from here, and apparently you can't create the self-perpetual energy machine completely. There needs to be some sort of intervention at some point. But I set up an aquaponics system. So the aquaponics system is like, you have the fish have their waste, and then that travels through to the plants take the waste, they turn it into something else, and they feed it back to the fish. So I love the system, and I love the system you've created in that, where yes, the energy is being used to create a product. People are out there, they digest the product, but then there's waste left over. That can then really start a whole nother process again.
Absolutely. And in fact, like if someone's at home, they could literally run it off their kitchen table if they wanted to. And again, there's employment opportunities, or you can help someone get into business. So, using your failings and learnings over the time, you can say, you know what, we can fast track it, we can eliminate that. So, I mean, my skills have grown exponentially, and I just feel I've got even more to give to people now. So
sounds like it's just the start. But I wanted to ask you too, just around the business model. Is it retail, wholesale? Is it a mix of both?
It is actually a mix of both. It actually makes more sense for me to wholesale or white label for people.
Yep.
Just because I'm dealing with that much waste that it's much better if I'm sending it in bulk off to people as opposed to like a 30 mil beard oil sort of thing. So the more I can do that, the more said. And one of the issues of business is shipping, and especially at the moment, transport is just a huge cost. So, absolutely. And trying to find that, this is probably my challenge, is to find an ethically driven or sustainably driven shipping, logistics and supply organizations. We know that there's some very big fish in that water. They don't always have the best interests of even their employees at heart. So, finding those businesses to deal with, again, has an impact across the board.
Yeah, and that's us touching on those challenges again. It'd be so easy to compromise, but it rules out the entire value of the system you've created. So
yeah. Well, I heard of this thing where companies are sort of saying that they're green and eco-friendly, but really it comes down to what percentage of their actions or their results are actually for the good of more than their board.
Yeah, absolutely. So where can people find single origin skincare products if they're going to be white labeled?
What I'd really love for people to do is Facebook, Instagram are the two main social channels. So at Single Origin Skincare, but of course www.singleoriginskincare.com. Like I'd love for people to reach out, especially cafes. Who want to do something about their waste in the cafe, but specifically their coffee waste. I'm here to help them. I'm here to help, whether I deal with them into the future. The more people we have working on this, the better off we'll be. And there's too much waste for me to handle at the moment. So I definitely need more people on board. So a like and a follow on either of the social channels just sort of gives me that little bit of, hey, I know people are listening now, and that's probably the I'm going to keep on doing it anyway, but having people listen, Yeah,
well, look, Dean, I think you're doing an amazing job, and it was fantastic to hear about your business. I love the process that you've created there, and I love your ability to share it with the world. So well done.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Not a problem at all. You can tell that Dean is incredibly passionate about helping not just his business, but the community and the world in general actually thrive. Just using just a small little product can do so much and go so far. So do go and look for Single Origin Skincare and give him a like, give him a follow. Make sure you check out what he's going to do next, because it sounds like it's going to be great things. Until next time, my name's Russell Pearson. You can see more about me and where I am at russellpearson.com. I'm clearly passionate about helping business owners actually take their next steps and learn more about the different ways that they can actually build their sustainable business. Till next time, stay passionate, and I'll catch you on the next one.